Welcome to Draft on Tap. My name is Aldo Gandia. The good-looking guy beside me is Danny Shimon. Danny, how are you, my friend?
I am doing great, Aldo. There's 2 All-Star games going on. I have access to tape for both those All-Star games, so I am in my neck, up to my neck in tape here, just reviewing some of these young guys that are going to be coming up here in this upcoming draft, and guys that most likely the Bears are going to be picking a couple of these guys here. So
do you miss not being in Mobile? Do you wish you were in Mobile?
I do. I mean, obviously, you and I, we have the the little bond we have there in Mobile. You go for your massages. I try and keep it clean.
Legal massages.
So I say, and then but like just talking to some of the friends I have out there in the scouting community and the agent community, and some of the other people that we made, networking that we friends we made through the years with podcasts and all that stuff. So it's a fun atmosphere. It's a great job. Jim Nagy and his people do a great job in terms of getting everyone in one central location, and great way to network and meet people and make friends and just shoot the shit and see what's going on and just pick up little tidbits here and there and all that stuff. So I do miss it, but like you said, unfortunately we weren't able to make it this year, but fingers crossed, we'll be out there next year and you'll be getting those massages again.
Last year you were in Vegas for the Shrine Bowl game, and they actually moved it to Texas because of all of your gambling losses, I understand.
Well, that's not. I'm cheap when it comes to gambling, man. I don't. It takes
penny slot.
You throw money out here like manhole covers. About George Hallis.
Yes.
We don't have that much money to throw around here, so I try and keep it all in my pocket. But no, I mean, obviously because all joking aside, the reason they moved is because the Super Bowl's there and all that stuff, and obviously they even moved the Pro Bowl game over to Orlando this year because of the Super Bowls in Vegas this year. So yeah, it's a fun time. This is where I kind of grind the tape and just lock myself in a room for hours and hours, and no one knows where I'm at.
Well, this show is dedicated to getting you ready for the All-Star games, all of our watchers and followers, starting with tomorrow's East-West Shrine game and then Saturday's Senior Bowl. And then on the next show, we'll do a review of both All-Star games with a special focus on the Senior Bowl. Today, we have a very special guest. He is going to help us talk about some of the Shrine Bowl players we should keep an eye on. His name is Noah Chang. Noah, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here, and I'm always down to talk ball, so we can get into it whenever you guys want to.
Excellent. Well, let me start by asking you what your role is with the Shrine Bowl game. What are your responsibilities? What is your title?
So I'm the conference scout for the Big 12 and Mountain West. What that entails is basically a couple weeks after this, just doing background for next year's class, getting all the information from their high school past, stats, some analytics and testing numbers that we can find, kind of highlighting the guys we expect to be targeting next year, and just doing the overall conference in descending order from probably 6th year down to redshirt sophomores if we can get to it.
So you do you do a lot of traveling on their behalf, or are you just scouring the tape?
So we're all remote scouring the tape, but we all do get to live scout within the conference. This year I was lucky enough to go to 4 games, all in Texas, ironically. Everything's bigger, and obviously we're repping it this week and having a great time.
Excellent. Glad you're having a good time. Let's start talking about some of the players. I'll let you and Danny talk about the first player that you've targeted for us to learn about is Dadrian Taylor Demerson. Tell us about him.
Really enjoyed watching him this year. He's got a basketball and track background. Was a running back in high school, Oklahoma 5A Player of the Year, converted to safety at Tech. Really experienced player, 41 career starts. You can really see it this year. I thought he was playing a lot faster, a lot more confident. He's twitched up. You can see him lining up anywhere from on the line to single high. I really liked his instincts following the passer's eyes this year. He's very good. He moves smoothly. What I really like is he's really good at disrupting passing windows, and also plays a lot bigger than his size. You can see his competitive spirit as a tackler, as well as just disrupting guys down the stem. And I think this week he did a really good job and showed that he can be used as a nickel. He has that type of versatility. And yeah, he's just a versatile player. A lot to like with him. Great kid. Got to talk to him this week, and I think he shined like a really big spotlight on him. And a lot of teams should be interested in what he could do uh, in multiple schemes, really.
Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, with this guy specifically, is he comes in at that tweener size. He was measured at the East-West game at 5'10", 189 pounds, so he's right there. So, but I can see him playing a nickel. I mean, he's listed as a safety, but I think he's a guy that could be one of those cover safeties, guys that can come in and cover slot receivers, even those flex tight ends. Is that how you see him, or foresee him moving on at the next level there?
Most definitely. I also have to say I really like how he inserted from depth in the run game. Pretty solid tackler in space and a very effective blitzer off the edge. So you're getting a guy with multiple tools and a lot of experience, and I think a lot of teams would be excited to have that.
If you had to say in which areas of his game have shined this week, in your opinion, where is he really kind of the spotlight has been on him, and the scouts have been kind of noticing him? What has he really done this week that kind of put that spotlight and that shine on his game?
To me, I think it's stickiness and route recognition, especially in the one-on-ones. And also you could see even in recovery, if he's beat, he's going to play through the whistle. I think he had a really nice pass breakup on it seemed to be like a fade down the sideline. He was beat off the line, recovered, didn't have to look back for the ball. Perfect punch of the ball out. I mean, that's just the kind of guy that he'll be. Obviously, with his size, there might be concerns, but I think his instincts and really his quickness and competitiveness to play bigger and really kind of get in receivers' heads, tight ends' heads. They'll know where he's at. They'll know he's always around. So I think that's what he brings, and it's really the consistency. I think you could see that in all three practices.
And then the other player, although I think we're moving on to, or do you have a question for him?
No, let's move on to Mark Perry. I pressed the wrong button, which is why the awkward pause there. So Mark Perry, the 6-footer, 215-pound defensive back from TCU. Noah, what do you got on him?
Definitely an elite A athlete, ran track in high school and at Colorado, played DB, running back, and receiver in high school. He clocked a 10.65 100 meters, so he's definitely rangy and explosive. I think he made a big stride from last year to this year in terms of ball production and actually being able to anticipate when the throw's coming to be able to disrupt at the catch point. He's a smooth mover. He's a stout tackler. You can really just see it's unbelievable how he moves with his size, kind of a prototype, strong safety type. I do think he needs to develop a little bit of his discipline, but I think from last year to this year, you could tell that he's on the rise despite being an older prospect. And he seems to be a guy who is really interested in developing his skill set and his mentality. Really quiet, humble guy. It was awesome to meet him this week and just kind of talk to him about his career and everything he's done up to this point, coming from Colorado. And I think despite maybe some lack of interceptions, he may be a guy that might play the ball better at the next level.
That's curious because I had a different take on him, and J2K, one of our great listeners in the chat room, chimed in. He thinks he's a free safety. I see more of a box safety. I know that term's not used anymore in football because safeties are interchangeable, but I think I see him more comfortable around the line of scrimmage. And his tackle numbers are up, his tackle for loss numbers are up last couple of years. Curious, do you see him more of as a guy that I think you just mentioned that he's going to get better in terms of ball production at the next level, but do you see him more as a free safety, or do you see can I agree with me where you see him like more being in his zone and in his comfort zone, if you will, around the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, I agree with you. I see him more of as an overhang box safety. I think he's a plus tackler. I think this year he excelled at covering tight ends. Definitely used his frame. He seems to be better in the short area than in space. And I think he's the type of guy that if you let him make plays, let him do what he's good at, I think potentially he could have that versatility to play both ways. But right now, at this point, I think you want to get his confidence up, and that's the best fit.
Very good. Let's move on to Walter Rouse, the big 6'6", 318-pound offensive lineman from the University of Oklahoma. I think he played at Stanford and then transferred over to University of Oklahoma. Noah, what do you think about him?
Yes, sir, he did. The Stanford background definitely checks out. I think he's probably the best interview we've had in terms of media, in terms of in front of the scouts this week. You could nickname him the mayor, I think, of the Shrine Bowl. Like, that's just the type of personality he is. As far as on the field, 52 career starts, that's always big time for offensive linemen. He has a basketball and track background, also played both sides of the ball in high school. You could definitely see it. He's got pretty concise, functional footwork. He's a very good pass blocker. I really like his patience and spatial awareness before engaging. I think his hand placement and strike timing are really precise. Once he latches on, he's got a strong grip and shows the ability to anchor late through like a secondary bull rush. Good stoutness. I think as a run blocker, he's going to be more of a latch and occupy type of guy. He flashed some bursts, getting to the second level, getting out in space. But he's definitely going to be a guy who can create lanes on the inside and the perimeter.
Yeah, for me, Rouse is a guy that's flashed a couple times and watching the practice film, and you go back and take a look at his history. Aldo mentioned he's transferred from Stanford. This guy was a starter basically from day one at Stanford. He started. He's a redshirt senior. He started first 4 years at Stanford. He started this last year in Oklahoma. And I think his measurables. I didn't get the arm length and all that stuff. I'm a big arm length guy in terms of my tackles. No, you should know that right now. But in terms of other size measurables, I think he came in at 6'5", 309 pounds or something like that. I believe his measurables came in as weight. So, and he's got the experience over 2,500 snaps at left tackle. So this is like a guy that's going to come in and possibly even compete right away as a rookie. Do you see him sticking at left tackle, I'm assuming, or do you see him kicking inside to left guard, or where do you see his future at the next level?
I think he's a guy that you start him off at tackle. He's obviously smart enough to bump inside, but I'd like to see him fail there first, if that makes any sense. He's only played on the left side in his career, so I'd like to see him there first, just to make him comfortable. That's probably where he'll be best at. But with Walter, he's very flexible. He's quick on the fly, quick thinker, obviously very intelligent. So I don't doubt that he could bump inside and be successful. He's a technician.'s crafty, very competitive kid. Also, I think he'd be great in any locker room.
You're on mute, Aldo. You're already off to a great start. But come on, let's go, buddy.
That's $1 in the jar. Okay. Patrick Willis is our next victim here. 6'4", 338 pounds out of TCU. What do you got on him, Noah?
Most definitely. Willis Patrick is a mauler. He has that basketball background. Definitely a really big body, really wide phone booth type of guy. Also a former HBU player, 41 career starts for him. I thought he made the jump from that level to the Power 5 pretty seamlessly. I thought he stood out a lot in the first game against Colorado. Very heavy-handed striker, moves under control. I think his range might be a little limited, but his hand placement, his patience, and he has amazing pop in all his strikes. His footwork could get a little loose at times, but I think he gauges where he's at in space really well. Very stout pass blocker. Sorry about that. Has the ability to work his upper half and lower half independently. His ability to torque defenders and create lanes in the run game, as well as just finish consistently. Very nasty player. I think a lot of teams would like a guy like this. He kind of changes the mentality in that room.
Yeah, for me, first of all, it's hard for me not to call him Patrick Willis. Obviously, the former great linebacker from 49ers. That was my first part of it, was looking at his name. But yeah, I agree with you. I think his foot speed is questionable if you're going to put him on a tackle, either right or left tackle. He's definitely going to play left tackle. I think maybe he has a chance at right tackle, but I think more so his best position at the next level is going to be inside a guard. I'm not sure it's a left guard or right guard.
That's where he played this year, and I think that's exactly where he's got to be. That's where he was this week as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he has a wide body, big body guy that can move guys off the line of scrimmage. So I think that's where if you're going to project him next level is probably inside a guard and a guy like if you're talking for the Bears, I don't know if he fits ideally for the Bears because of that foot speed. They run the predominantly wide zone system here. So they have a new offensive coordinator. We're assuming he comes from the McVay tree. We're assuming he's going to continue that wide zone stuff. So I think he won't be an ideal fit. But again, if you're a power gap team that likes to have big guys that move guys off the line of scrimmage, Willis Patrick, I have to think about that one. Willis Patrick is the guy for you.
Definitely a guy who can displace defenders and really just impose his will when he wants to. And I think a lot of teams would like that. Like you said, gap scheme's perfect. And yeah, just a great guy to meet. If you guys have a chance to talk to him, it'd be a good
Cool. We'll reach out to him after the Shrine Bowl game, see if he wants to join us on the show. We had on Jalen Corker on our last show, and it was great talking with him. Our next victim here is KT Levinston, 6'5", 330-pound offensive lineman from Kansas State. And before I turn it over to you, Noah, all of these players, for those of you who have just joined us into the show, all of these players are playing tomorrow night. The game is the East-West Shrine Bowl game, and you can watch it on the NFL Network. Noah, take it away.
Yeah, please tune into that game. These guys are all excited. They're jonesing to go live for sure. And hopefully we can put up a few touchdowns on the board this time.
Nice.
But as far as KT, I really like his versatility. He's played left tackle for the last 2 years at K-State, but also played both guard spots. Basketball and track in high school, it's always important. You can see it in his footwork, how quick he is. I think this year, watching him at tackle, he kind of he got a better feel on the outside. Wasn't oversetting as much. He's a lot better at redirecting. You can really see his strike timing and his spatial awareness improve. Another violent run blocker, definitely gets to the second level and the perimeter with urgency and is always looking to finish.
Excellent. Danny?
Yeah, KT, I haven't really broken his tape down yet, so I have not much to add there other than Noah did. But I do have another question for Noah about another player. I'm not sure if you have any, and I know we talked briefly about some guys that I was going to bring up. But this guy I forgot to mention. But just if you don't know, if you haven't done anything on him, that's great. But or that's okay, I should say. Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. Have you had a chance to break him down? Because he pops, man, and he pops for his nastiness on tape. And he's a guy that you always saw. When the whistle's going off, he's got a little elbow here, a little shove here. He's an agitator, and I like those kind of guys that play nasty with the mean streak. So, do you have anything on Mason McCormick for us from South Dakota State?
Yeah, most definitely. In the one-on-one reps that I saw him in, he really showed that anchor, that competitive drive. Because really, I know linemen hate it when defenders bull rush in those types of drills, but he seemed to accept the challenge. I mean, he was able to stick in front and anchor down through almost every single rep. Quick puller, like you said, nasty striker, definitely imposes his will on guys and lets them know. You could see that. I mean, I was all the way up in the box. I can see it from there, man. And yeah, he really flashed. Definitely turned some heads this week.
No, the big offseason story here in Chicago is what the Bears are going to do at quarterback. The entire city is split on this. 50% or so want Justin Fields to remain at quarterback and continue to develop him. 50% want the Bears to draft Caleb Williams or someone at that top spot, maybe Jaden Daniels. But there are some fans who are saying maybe keep Justin and draft a developmental quarterback to compete with Tyson Bagent, who showed some promise in his 4 games with the Chicago Bears this past year. Of the quarterbacks that you've seen at the Shrine Bowl game, have any jumped out at you?
Most definitely. I think the guy on the top of my head would be Devin Leary. Just thinking back to, I believe it was 2 years ago now at NC State, what he was able to do there. I know his transition to the SEC wasn't as smooth as people might have thought, but from what I can see, he's got a quick release. He's quick on the fly, throws a nice catchable ball. He's got good touch, and very competitive.
Isn't Leary a guy who played a different position for a while and then went to quarterback? I have him confused with somebody else.
Well, he was at North Carolina State.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's really good. Fun.
Gotcha. Any of the other, jumping off quarterback, one guy that I'm hoping, one position that I'm hoping will be filled with a speedy running back. Have you seen anyone at the Shrine Bowl game who kind of fits that bill, a gadget type player, somebody who can run under 4.5 and give that backfield some speed?
I think one under the radar guy, and I'm not really sure if he's going to get drafted this year, would be Sheridan from Monmouth. He showed a lot of twitch. He's very undersized, but obviously he fits that role. That's what he would do at the next level. I thought he popped pretty well with the burst through the hole. Looked shifty. I think his vision needs to develop a little bit. You could see that kind of at the game, and obviously getting into the league when he does, he'll kind of need to adjust to the speed. But that would be the guy that caught my eye in that type of role. Also, Watson from Memphis as well.
Okay. Danny, you got anything else for Noah?
Well, no, just real quick on the quarterback thing. The one quarterback that I like of this group is unfortunately not playing, and that's Jordan Travis from Florida State. He had the broken ankle, so he's out there in a walking boot. That's a guy I wanted to see go out there and put on a show, but he's not available, unfortunately. But a couple of guys that caught my eye, Noah, real quick, and I'll talk about these guys in more in depth after later on in the show. But Taj Washington, from USC. He's a guy, diminutive slot receiver, 5'9", 177. But this guy, man, he's got that quick twitch, stop and go ability, quick feet. And what I like about him is, again, small in size, but man, this guy will go up and attack the ball in the air. And I love the fact that he brings that ability. Led the Pac-12 last year with 18 yards per reception average. So he jumped off the tape for me. Curious, what do you think about Taj Washington from USC?
I think everything he said we saw this week. I think he had the two most impressive contested catches of the week. For me, it was just seeing the smoothness and suddenness of his breaks, how he's able to get in and out with bursts. I think he has good tempo control. He's a very precise route runner, and I think he really, really impressed this week. I was very happy we had him. And I think he also showed what he could do on time, on schedule. I know a lot of his production was just the chemistry with Caleb Williams extending plays and whatnot. But I think Taj had a good week.
Very good. Noah, before we get you out of here, I got a question because a lot of people who watch this show are interested in scouting. What do you have as advice for somebody who is either in college or maybe someone who's thinking of a career change in their 20s, 30s, whatever age? Do you have any advice for them to get into the scouting business?
For me, as it's been explained, I think being a personnel assistant in college football is probably the most efficient route. You get a lot of experience just working in the back behind the curtain. I think you have to do a lot of different odd jobs, and it really tests people. And I think that's kind of what scouting interns have to do at the next level. My own path was pretty different. I would say I didn't do that in college. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I ended up working at SIS, the football analytics company, and going to their scouting school after hours, learning there. Was fortunate enough to see this job listing and went through another round of training that I think is a lot more beneficial this time around with the Shrine Bowl. But I have multiple coworkers who have entered the business from a lot different routes. I think you just have to find your lane and try to stand out. And obviously, I'm not the best at ask advice because I'm not currently an NFL scout, but hope to be. And I would just say, as long as you love the game and you're willing to do the work and you're willing to do everything else that comes with it beyond evaluations, you have as good a shot as anyone.
Great advice, Noah. I really appreciate it, and wish you the best of luck in your career. And you don't know this yet, but you're going to be a future guest on another Barroom Network show because I'm going to bug you until you say yes. So thanks very much for coming on.
Appreciate you guys for having me, and sure, that sounds good. Just let me know.
All right. See, that's how I do it, Danny. I don't give them a choice. I just say, take care, Noah. That's Noah Chang. What a good guy. Knows his stuff and presents it very, very well. Danny, you've also worked on your list, and you've given us a preview already with Taj Washington. Why don't we just start with him, and then we'll go back to the order that I have on the show rundown. So Taj Washington, this, as you said, diminutive wide receiver from USC, 5'10", 175 pounds. His tape is really bouncing out for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that started off his career at Memphis, transferred to USC. He was a starter this last 3 years at USC. He's got a track and soccer background in high school. Like I mentioned earlier, he led the Pac-12, averaging 18 yards per reception this past year with 8 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards receiving. Again, slot receiver, quick feet, stop and start, quick twitch, athletic ability. This is the guy that can create in the open field. Get the ball in his hands on bubble screens, slip screens, whatever not, and just let him do his thing. And obviously in the slot, will run and get open in zone. That's I like the fact that he wills it, and because I watch a lot of Caleb Williams tape, scouting Caleb Williams, and obviously him and Brendan Rice really stuck out to me. So Taj Washington was a guy that in zone coverage, you're able to sit down there and get open. Hands catcher. We talked about his ability here at the East West Shrine and be able to go up and make a play on the ball. Again, he came in at 5'9", 177, but he doesn't back down. He's fearless going over the middle, fearless going up top on guys, and again, just a natural hands catcher, can extend away from his frame, even though it's a shorter catch radius, smaller catch radius, I should say. But he's a guy that can make play on a football. Again, gives you yak after the catch. There's a lot of times, he's a guy that with Caleb running around, he comes and makes himself available. And next thing you know, he makes a move and he's gone for 15, 20 yards down the field. So gives you that quickness, acceleration after the catch, and got some kickoff return experience as well. So I give you something on special teams until he works his way up maybe to the regular rotation at receiver. And also, for a guy 5'9", 177, he's an effort blocker. This guy will actually go in there and put his nose in there and try and block downfield for his running back or for his other receivers. So, everything I've seen on tape from USC, everything I saw at the East West Shrine practices, this is a guy that legitimately has a chance to make a roster next year. And whether it's on special teams or coming in as a slot receiver, as a fifth receiver or whatnot, I think he's a guy that's going to come in and make an impression early on and stick on a roster.
Ooh, somebody to keep an eye on. Hopefully he gets some passes thrown his way tomorrow. And you said he's going to work special teams perhaps tomorrow?
Well, he's got kickoff return experience at USC. So, he's a guy that could give you some of that if you want to bring him in. I'm not sure what the rotation is tomorrow for the game, but yeah, keep an eye on him tomorrow. He might be able to make a play there on special teams as well.
Okay, let's get back to the trenches. Another guy that's caught your eye is Christian Mahogany. 6'3", 333 pounds, out of Boston College.
Yeah, another guy. Obviously, these BC offensive linemen, they'll come out to the NFL level well prepared and ready to. They're aggressive and they're tough guys. And Mahogany falls right in line. His size, his dimensions don't fall in line with what he played right guard for Boston College, a 3-year starter. Redshirted a couple of seasons, redshirted as a freshman, and in 2022. Tore his ACL prior to the season, so he redshirted that year as well. So he's I think he's a redshirt senior, 5th or 6th year senior. But again, he's a guy that when you put on his tape, at Boston College, you see a guy that use of hands, gains leverage, can go and seal and pin defensive linemen at the line of scrimmage. Here at the Shrine practices, it seems to be a little bit lighter. So, I mean, maybe he's done some work out there, shed some weight after the season, but, his feet look agile, lateral quickness, be able to maintain his blocks moving laterally. I think this is the guy that, again, brings some of that nasty, some of that grit you want in your offensive lineman, can chip and release to the next level defenders. And I think that his movement skills really have what impressed me at the East West Shrine practices, his ability to get up and, like I said, get to that second level defender and maintain and sustain. So again, Christian Mahogany is a Boston College, came in at 6'2", 318. So, some have talked about maybe him kicking inside a center. We'll see what happens there, but he's been a right guard predominantly at Boston College. And I think if you bring him in as a backup, a guy gives you nice, good depth behind your starters there, I think he's got potentially has a chance to stick on a roster next season as well.
What is it about these Boston College players? I mean, some schools just really specialize in finding these young athletes, right?
Right. It's just the mentality. It's the way they coached up. It's the way that just some schools have a tradition in terms of, hey, this is you're following this type of tradition. You got to kind of play by this rule and all that stuff. And these guys come out tough and ready to go. And again, just gritty, hard-nosed blockers. And of course, if you're an offensive lineman and you're nasty, you're gritty, and you're hard-nosed, that catches my eye right away. And that right away, I'm more and more intrigued by your abilities.
Yeah, there seem to be a few of them available in this draft. We'll be tracking them. Let's stay with the trenches, but on the other side of the line of scrimmage, Fabian Lovett, 6'4", 318-pound defensive lineman from Florida State.
Yeah, he's a guy that actually I was scouting last draft, and I thought maybe he had a chance to come out last year, but he stayed in school. Another guy that is a redshirt senior, transferred from Mississippi State after 2020, after the 2019 season, I should say. A 4-year starter at Florida State. Again, his issue for me, at least when watching his tape, the production wasn't there, right? He's only had 6 sacks throughout his career. Tackle for losses are only like 14.5, so the production hasn't always been there. But you go on and you watch him here at the East-West Shrine game, you see his ability to be a disruptor in the backfield, be able to kind of, get skinny and pierce in between blockers and get into the backfield and create havoc. And I saw a lot of that. I saw some spring in his step here in these East-West Shrine games. And I think this is a guy, again, 6'4", came in at 6'3", actually 307, good length. Again, this is a guy that, depth guys you can bring in. Is he going to be a starter day one? Probably not, but he's a guy, he's got some skill you can work with. He's got the size, he's got the athletic ability, and you got to coach him up. And you can develop him into a very good depth, backup player, or potentially even a starter down the line. But again, he's a guy that, again, has the athletic ability, has the traits. It's just the production hasn't been there on tape. Whatever the reason was at FSU, it just didn't work out for him in terms of, being consistent producer on the football field. But again, we put on the tape here at the East-West Shrine practices, and this guy's actually dominating the line of scrimmage. The one-on-ones, he's going up against Mahogany, and he's beating him there. He shows an ability, again, to pierce and get scheming in between those blockers and be a disruptor into the backfield. And that caught my eye. And this is someone, again, I had my eye on from last draft, and now he's into this draft here. But again, he's a guy, maybe day 3, he falls there in that range, 5th, 6th round range. You can pluck him, again, develop him into a really quality backup, or, possibly even a starter down the road.
Yeah, it's J2K says, what happened to Levitt? I thought he was going to grow more this year. It's interesting, and I'm sure that's something that evaluators are going to be digging into in their interviews with Levitt, and by asking the people around them why the regression this season. But it's good to see that he's performing at a good level in this All-Star game. Next on your list is Miles Murphy.
Yeah, this is a guy. I mean, I put this kid's I was watching the tape, and then I'm like, who's this kid number 8? Just continue to walk guys into the backfield, and it's Miles Murphy, came in at 6'4", 312. Again, 4-star high school recruit out of North Carolina, 3-year starter at North Carolina. In 2023, he was an All ACC honorable mention. This is, again, another guy doesn't produce big numbers in terms of sacks. Only has 7 sacks for his career. But this is a power-based player. This is a guy that is hard to move off a spot. He can take on double teams and maintain his ground. He's what I call a pocket collapser. He's going to grab the guard or center in front of him and just literally walk him back into the quarterback. And that's what he's been doing here at the East-West Shrine practices. It just, disrupting that flow of the offense by just basically power rushing a guy back into him. So, again, those are guys, again, with those measurables, a guy that you can develop and make into a 2-down player. I thought of like Andrew Billings. He's on last year of his contract, or actually he just signed for 2 years. But a guy that can come in and back him up and be someone that can probably replace him down the line. So Miles Murphy is a guy with the size and the athletic ability and the measurables to be able to make a roster. Is just now developing the rest of him. And I think you could have potentially have a player that could be a really good, to pretty dominant run stuffer.
Wasn't there a pass rusher out of Clemson last year named Miles Murphy?
Yes, there was. I forgot his name was Miles Murphy. But number 98 from Clemson. I think it's Miles Murphy. Yeah, that was his name.
I'm pretty sure it is. That one and Patrick Willis.
I'm on a 2024 draft. I can't go back to 2023. My brain doesn't retain that much knowledge, man.
Doesn't have the RAM or capacity, whatever the computer term it is. All right, then let's talk about Caden Wallace, 6'5", 328 pounds, out of Penn State.
Yeah, actually, he measured in at 6'4", 322 down at the in Frisco, Texas, at the East-West Shrine game. And again, another athletic guy, a redshirt senior, 4-star high school prospect coming out of New Jersey, competed in a shot put and a discus for track and field. Actually, won the state championship back in 2015 in shot put. A 4-year starter, right tackle. Now he's probably kind of, with those dimensions, he's probably going to be kicked inside. But again, an experienced 4-year starter at a Power 5 conference in the Big Ten, opposite of his teammate Olu, who's going to be going in the first round. I think this guy kind of going unnoticed, and then you just kind of put on his tape and see what he's doing at the East-West Shrine game. He's got the athletic ability. He's got the feet to move laterally and uncaught. With this type of offense, what the Bears are going to run, you want athletic offensive linemen. I think his versatility, being able to play, playing a right tackle and then possibly kicking inside the guard. I think, again, this is a guy that in day 3, you can probably bring in and give you nice depth there. Got the athletic ability. He's got the traits. I think he's a guy that can develop here as a nice quality backup as well.
Excellent. By the way, J2K has a question regarding his teammate who is also at the Shrine Bowl. Have you looked at all at Penn State center, Hunter Norzad?
I have not looked at the entire center group, J2K. I've done the top 2 guys right now, but I haven't gotten deep in depth on the center group. That is next on my list in terms of the offensive line positions.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how what you got to say about him. All right, let's move on now to number 4 on your list, and it is we got Taj already, so this is number 5, Cornelius Wallace. Yeah,
well, Cornelius Johnson actually. So this is the Michigan receiver.
I messed up.
No, it's all right. This guy's 6'2", 213 pounds, a 3-year starter, all Big Ten selection in 2023, 4-time academic all Big Ten, student athlete as well. And, you put on the tape and his Michigan tape, and you don't really catch him popping as much. 2022 last year, he had 6 touchdowns, average, almost 16 yards per reception. But you put on his tape here at the East-West Shrine game, and you see that athletic ability. And I think some of the reasons why he hasn't popped as much in Michigan, I believe, the guy's a starter, but I believe that just the offense they run in Michigan, which is, predominantly run-based, heavy run-based, I should say. I don't think they give these guys their fair shot. There's another kid doing it at the Senior Bowl we'll talk about later on here. But, size here with Cornelius Johnson, 6'2", 213, quick feet. This is the guy that's in and out of his breaks really fast, uses that quickness and his size to be able to, release off the line of scrimmage, beat press coverage, can sink his hips and separate on those whip routes or those real quick hitting routes, and accelerates into his route. And this is a guy that has that speed that kind of builds as he gets deeper into the route. And again, a guy that's got the body control to be able to go outside of his frame to be able to bring the catch. It really has impressed me in terms of what he's done so far down here in Frisco, Texas at the East-West Shrine game. So hopefully these guys can pop tomorrow, because if they can carry this momentum over into the game and just kind of correlate what they've done, and now scouts are going to be running back and taking a look at all these the actual game film from the past years at Michigan for this kid in particular. And again, it put on 2022. He's got 6 touchdowns. The production is there on touchdowns, and his average too is averaging almost 16 yards per reception as well. So big size guy, 6'2", again, 213, quicker than you anticipate for a guy that size. Just shows some good acceleration and an ability to get downfield and make plays on the football.
J2 says, I had no idea that Cornelius was considered a sleeper. He thought he played well, but didn't get the opportunities at Michigan. And
that's down because of the offense. J2K, they run that heavy run offense, and a lot of times that's why JJ McCarthy. I talked a lot. I'll tell you before, although like scouts like this kid, and a lot of them say that his production has been based on the kind of offense he runs with Jim Harbaugh down in Michigan. And once he gets to the next level, this guy's going to be a chance to step up his game. So a lot of the Michigan skilled players are doing the same thing here in these All-Star games. It's showing some of what they can do as well.
Okay, so I think we did all 6 of your top guys to look for at tomorrow.
These are the guys that caught my eye during the week of practices.
Right. So it's tomorrow night's Shrine Bowl game on NFL Network. I think it's a 6 p.m. kickoff, or maybe 7 p.m. Either way, check your local listings. And you mentioned JJ McCarthy. I'll do another plug here. Jordan Silvera is going to be one of our guest evaluators or guest scouts, and he's going to do a report on JJ McCarthy. We should have that ready for next week's show. But right now, let's go to this week's evaluator. It is a man by the name of Rob Paul. He does a podcast called 7 Rounds of Heaven, and I think if I have this correctly cued, it is Georgia wide receiver Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. We try it again. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint.
3rd and 3. Back to the outside, and that's complete. And Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint.
So with Rosemy-Jacksaint, I think the biggest thing is you see he's playing for Georgia, and he wasn't the go-to guy really at any point in his career there, just out of sheer talent they have around him. Obviously, the last few years, Brock Bowers, Lab McConkey, they brought in Dominic Lovett from Missouri this year. But he's a former top 100 recruit, and you can see that pretty obviously on tape just in terms of the way he moves. Super fluid receiver, not a burner, but really clean in and out of his breaks, catches the ball really well. And so when he got the Senior Bowl invite, it was a little bit of a surprise, I think, to some people, just because he was kind of the 3rd or 4th receiver the last 2 years for the Bulldogs. But I think he's the type of guy who's going to end up having a better NFL career than he did a collegiate career. When watching the tape, you really see his ability to track the football. He has phenomenal body control. It's almost like he's floating when he elevates to win 50-50 balls. Really good catch radius too. And he's a lean 6'2", 195. And he's kind of, just in terms of a prospect comparison, I would say Josh Reynolds with the Lions is a very similar stylistically type player. Just in terms of not a guy who's going to run like a 4.4 or anything. Probably more of a 4.5, mid 4.5 guy, but just so fluid with his route running, and it's really the ball skills. I think he's among the of at least the senior receivers this year, among the best in terms of ball skills.
Bennett down the middle, on the run to Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, and he's got the touchdown.
My freshman year, my first touchdown. That would be forever my favorite moment. I don't care if I got hurt after the play, that would forever be the one moment that stick out to me. I ain't like it.
So if I could follow up on the play that you broke your ankle, why was that your favorite memory?
Because in that one play, I had a lot about myself I learned, and a lot about myself that I had to grow into following that play. So I feel like that one play, everything that transpired afterwards shaped me to who I am today. So.
And I think that's part of a big reason why it kind of stunted his career at Georgia initially. Obviously, being a top 100 recruit in Georgia, rarely missing on those blue chip kind of guys. He didn't really have much of an impact until 2022, and even in that capacity, it was more of a 4th, 5th reserve type of player. This season, though, he kind of finally had those opportunities, and you could see again why he was such a big recruit and why he's earned that Senior Bowl invite now. And so it's just a guy who the injury, I don't think it really hasn't had like a long-term effect with him, but it kind of did stunt his career early on, and that's why he's been somewhat of a sleeper in this draft class. He's the type of guy who, if you're a team like the Bears who have that go-to guy already in DJ Moore and are probably looking to take a receiver, maybe not with the first pick at 9 or later on day 2, he's like a 5th round. I would say a safe bet in the 5th round where he can be a reserve guy who you could take time and develop. Similar again with Josh Reynolds, first with the Rams, now with the Lions. Just because I do think he has the athletic traits you look for, on top of the fact that he's so good in these 50-50 ball scenarios, which you always want with an X receiver. Like, he's a ball winner on the outside. And he plays bigger than he is, and I think development is key with him, and a few years down the line I wouldn't be shocked to see him being a starting receiver somewhere.
That's quite the tongue twister. I'll let you handle it from here. I know you looked at some tape. By the way, I should have put a caution on that videotape when he broke his ankle. That was a gruesome break of the ankle. Probably should have put a caution on there. So if anyone was startled by that, I apologize. Danny, what do you think about this particular wide receiver from Georgia?
Yeah, we talked about him last week with our guest JP, in terms of, is that guy that this week I thought had a chance to go out there and show what he does. And I think what his talents at Georgia were kind of not put to the fullest use, in my opinion. Again, last year 535 yards receiving, only 4 touchdowns, average again 15.7 yards per catch. So he's got that big playability. I disagree with the gentleman that was scouting here for us, because I think he's going to run in the high 4.4s. I think he's got that type of speed. Comes in at 6'1", 190 here at the Senior Bowl. And he hasn't done anything to make you say wow or anything right now at the Senior, but he's been consistent. He's a guy that catches the ball when it's thrown him. He's got again the long arms, the huge catch radius. He's a guy that can extend outside his frame and make a catch. And I really liked them when they lined him up in the slot at Georgia. And I think that's where you could see him kind of with no one getting in his face and pressing him, not slowing him off the line of scrimmage. This guy, once he got into his route, you saw him put that gear and kind of get down and make a play down at the next level or down the field. So I think it's a guy that again, he's not going to go on probably day 1 or day 2. I'm pretty sure he's not going on day 1 or day 2, but day 3, we're talking about guys where you're looking for guys with traits, guys you can come in and that you can kind of build up and coach up and make into players. And we've seen a lot of these receivers, these last, 3, 4, 5 years fall into, day 3 and come in and make impact at this NFL level. And again, you're looking for traits, you're looking for ability to make plays of the ball down the field. And and Jacksaint has that ability. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the catch radius. He's just got a slender frame, so he's gonna have to get bulkier and get a little stronger, especially if they're gonna come and press him at the line of scrimmage. That's why I like them in the slot a lot, because they typically don't press those guys in the slot. So I give him a free release and let him get out there and do his thing. So, but yeah, he's not a quick twitch, after the catch kind of guy, but he's a guy that can run, play some outside, play some X, play some Z if he wants, obviously line up in the slot, give you some options there. And again, talented kid. That injury did slow him down, because that was, he was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. So, but the injury kind of slowed him down. It took him a little bit to get back from that. But I think, once he gets built up again, not a day 1 starter, next year, but a guy you can kind of bring in, coach up, but he's got the traits, he's got the tools to be a potential starter down the line there.
I was super impressed with him when he said that was the most memorable play, his favorite play of his college career. That play where he scored his first touchdown in college, but also had that horrific ankle injuries that set him back a year and plus the rehab. And he went on to say that the reason it's his favorite play is because he learned a lot about himself. He learned that, he has the toughness. He can overcome emotional disappointment, plus also the physical disappointment, and to come back and play at the high level that he did is a testament to his character. So that's got to look good. My only complaint about him is that I saw 3 or 4 of his press conferences. In all of them, he had a wrinkled shirt. So we need to buy him an iron. He needs to iron that shirt. Yeah, true. All right, Danny, there are a number of other Senior Bowl players that we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to take a quick break. It's a 30-second break. And then when we come back, I've got another report on a wide receiver from Johnny Wilson. And then we'll talk about some of your favorites that you've scouted on tape this week. Okay, so stand by, everybody.
I'm Rob Paul. You can find my draft takes and NFL rookie coverage at 7 Rounds in Heaven, a podcast that's available everywhere. And you can follow my NFL betting with covers.com.
One, two, three, four, five. Oh, yeah. Take it back.
All right, that was a little commercial for our draft coverage, and I got some good news for those of you who religiously watch the Gabriel Talks football show. He's got a commitment from Daniel Jeremiah to jump on the show, and they're going to debate 3 or 4 players that they have disagreements on. That's going to happen very, very soon. And of course, he's already promised, he being Greg, promised us an interview with Jerry Angelo, the former Bears general manager. That's just 2 of the people that we're going to have on guests on Great Gabriel Talks Football. And again, on this show, Draft on Tap, we're going to have a number of guests, and I'm working on Jim Nagy after the Senior Bowl. And one guy who did a great job today at the Senior Bowl was Johnny Wilson, and Rob Paul has a report on him.
Lawrence Toafili, the running back, a play fake, a deep shot. Wilson behind the defense has the catch. And if that throw had been just a little longer, he might have gone even further. Play of the half.
Ball just the tiniest bit underthrown, but look at the separation by 6'7", 240-pound Johnny Wilson, number 9.
So I think with Johnny Wilson, the first thing that jumps out is there aren't a lot of wide receivers built like this. He is listed at 6'7", 237, just a massive X receiver. And it kind of, the buzz started building when he was a redshirt freshman at Arizona State in 2021. And Jaden Daniels, of all people, was his quarterback. And they started they had a few games where his talent really popped. And again, when you see a receiver that big making contested catches, you start to get really excited about what he could be. Obviously, ends up transferring to Florida State. Great year in 2022. Not as productive this year, but I think that had more to do with the addition of Keon Coleman, who's a potential first-round pick. But I think the thing with Johnny Wilson is, do you leave him at receiver, or do you like the idea of him maybe being that F type of move tight end? I've heard people say, could he be in that same mold as Darren Waller? And I think that's a really lofty comparison. I think Darren Waller is just a different type of athlete. But obviously Johnny Wilson, with the size, the catch radius, the physicality at the catch point, he's a really interesting potential day 2 pick. I see him more on day 3, but a strong Senior Bowl performance could certainly put him into day 2 in a deep wide receiver class. There aren't a lot of 6'5" and taller receivers who can sink their hips really well. I mean, not every athlete's born like Calvin Johnson. So with Johnny Wilson, I think that's part of the reason some people are wondering maybe a move to tight end fits him better, just because he does he's a little bit stiff. He does struggle to get in and out of his breaks. He's not the most creative route runner in terms of stemming his routes. But at the same time, like, if you move him to tight end, does he have the ability to put on another 20 pounds? What's he look like as an inline blocker? That's part of my concern with him, is I just not totally sure what I want to do with him. And that's why, right, like, the Senior Bowl is a great opportunity to see how well does he run? How does he look running the full route tree? What's he look when all eyes are on him against the top corner? Is he able to sink his hips and just run a curl? Can he stem his routes one-on-one and create separation that way? Because he's not a burner. I don't like, with the Darren Waller comparisons, that's where it just doesn't really add up. I don't think he has that type of athleticism. He doesn't have that type of fluidity, that type of acceleration. So I think he's a really tough player to project, just because I think a lot of people are getting caught up in what he could be and not looking at it more realistically with these types of massive receivers. I think every draft season, draftniks kind of fall in love with these almost unicorn type of wide receivers who are just massive, when a lot of the time they don't work out. Something that kind of interests me with him is we've seen more and more kind of these jumbo slot receivers in recent years. I mean, that's essentially how the Chiefs use Travis Kelce, for example. So if we're talking about Johnny Wilson struggling to create separation outside, could we view him as a jumbo slot, one of those power slots who plays a big part in the run game, where he's just going to absolutely overmatch nickels with his size? I do think, like, there's a lot of potential here with him as a blocker, especially if we're moving him inside. Obviously not as like a classic inline wide tight end, but if he is if a team drafts him and views him as more of that move tight end, and you've got this much size on the inside and a guy who's willing to block, I think it becomes really interesting for a team that wants to run the ball. Like let's use the Bears, for example. I think he'd be a really interesting addition at slot receiver for them, especially in the run game.
Kenny, what do you think? This Johnny Wilson, who is massive, man, can he help out the Chicago Bears in some way?
Oh, of course he can help out the Chicago Bears. I mean, Johnny Wilson, the big thing with him, I saw him last year, I thought, oh, this could be another reincarnation of Mike Evans, the Buccaneers receiver. But he's not as athletic as Mike Evans, and he is a little bit of a he's not as as athletic as Darren Waller. Even remember, Darren Waller came out of Georgia Tech as a receiver as well, and then turned over to tight end. So I don't think he's that tight end. I don't think he fits that tight end mold, right? I think what the big thing with Johnny Wilson is, what can he run? What's he going to run? Right? Is he a high 4.7 guy? Then he's probably not going to be a big high draft pick at a receiver. But I've been texting some people down at the Senior Bowl, watching him live, and even watching the tape, and he's getting past guys. He's beating guys down the football. But unfortunately, his quarterbacks on his team aren't that good, and they're not getting the ball to him. But he's getting, so he seems to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more faster. So my comp for him is Kelvin Benjamin. If you remember him, he was that big receiver with the Carolina Panthers back when they went to the Super Bowl, and a big body receiver. Limited in terms of what he can do after the catch, but again, he's a weapon. He's a threat in the red zone. A guy that can just, he's 6'6", Wilson, that is 6'6", 237 pounds with 35+ inch arms. So he's got a huge catch radius. So you talk about, one-on-one fade in the corner, you throw it in his area code, and he's the guy that can go up there and make a catch. So that's the thing with Johnny Wilson in terms of what's he going to run? What is he going to be at the combine in terms of, is he going to be a receiver speed, or is he going to be a guy that's going to be kind of flexed out as a tight end maybe or whatnot? And then the other thing is, I saw a lot of drops at Florida State on his tape, and that's something that he's going to have to work on. Those are correctable. We've seen a lot of receivers come in with drop issues, and then just kind of put in the effort, put in the work after practice or whatnot, and get better at that. But I mean, if he gets rid of those drops and he runs a decent 4.6 or high 4.5, I think he's a guy you could be a big X receiver. I like Rob's taking them lining up in the slot, especially in those red zone areas, and where you can guys can get on him and maybe match him up with a smaller DB, and again just throw it up to him. Throw it in his area code, and he's a guy that should be able to go up there and make a play in football. So he could be, if you utilize correctly, he's a guy that could be a weapon for you, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wish I was down there in Mobile, because he was one of the guys I wanted to focus in on. I did include in that video report a couple of highlights from his day today at the Senior Bowl. And let me see if I can put this back up on the screen here. This is him clearly creating separation. I mean, he might have pushed off there a little bit. Let me see if I can cue.
Right, he's got that big body. Him sinking his hips at 6'6" and creating some of that separation. It's a little bit more difficult for him. But what he's gonna have to learn is get better at his craft and using that frame, using that body, and even like you said, you maybe pushed off a little bit. Getting crafty with being able to kind of use those long limbs to create that little bit of a separation. These are NFL quarterbacks. Little small creases, they can get the ball into you, and then. Just do that and be a guy that can be, at worst, a possession type receiver and a red zone target. I think he can have a long, productive NFL career. But the thing is, if you're going to expect this guy to stretch the field and all that stuff, I think you're asking a little bit too much. But again, can he be a threat? Can he be a weapon? Sure, with that size, that body length, and if he works on those, like I said, his hands and gets rid of some of those drops. Like I said, we've seen him at Florida State beat guys deep. We've seen him here at the Senior Bowl. Beat guys deep. So, if he gives you some of that, that's to be a nice little, a tarantula, if you will, down the football field, trying to, make plays there for you.
And I love this upcoming highlight. It really it shows perhaps some improvement. Gets away from the defender with a nice move, and then it's all hands right there. Beautiful job. Let me show you that again while you talk over it.
Yeah, and there's other clips. I think might have been yesterday's practice where it was a go route and he had over the top leverage on a defender, but the ball was badly thrown. I mean, it was not even in his area code. So that's the thing is he's shown the ability here to get some wiggle, to beat some press coverage at the line of scrimmage, get downfield, get over top leverage. Doesn't need that much room because of his size and his length and ability to go up and make a play on a football. So just get some opening, some space between you and the defender, whether it's over the top or even like some of those on those crossing out, those out routes. Get some, be able to use your body, your frame to kind of shield off the defender and give your quarterback a nice big target to throw to. I think he can be a weapon for sure.
All right. So there are a number of other Senior Bowl players you wanted to share with us today in anticipation for Saturday's game, which is also on the NFL Network. Why don't you take it away, brother?
Yeah, once again, just diving into the tape here and some of the players here, and great job. I know we mentioned Jim Nagy. We're trying to effort him to get on one of these shows, in the coming weeks. And a great job by him and his staff, and just doing, putting up, yeoman's work in terms of finding guys, putting talented players on the football field. And it's funny because you go to me, give me a couple of guys from the Senior Bowl. I'm like, although I've seen 2 days worth of practices, and I have a ton of guys that I want to talk about, but I'm gonna try and keep it here to a limit here, because I know we were trying to do a 2-hour show, but not a 5-hour show. But going on different teams, right? So the quarterbacks are really, really weak, in my opinion. I think the best quarterback down there in Mobile right now is Michael Penix Jr., and I think even he has shown some difficulties. But what he has shown that touch, the accuracy, to be able to spin that ball. It is predominantly an arm, all arm motion. He does use some feet. I thought today looked a little better in terms of using being able to kind of step up in the pocket, buy some time with feeling up that rush and throwing some nice dimes to the outside, some outside rights. But again, I think he is by far the most or the best, I should say, quarterback prospect. If you're looking at the quarterbacks, I'll give you a quarterback that has surprised me, because I wasn't expecting much from him coming in, but it's really, especially today, I think showed something. That's Spencer Rattler. Obviously, if you guys know, he was a highly decorated recruit, went to Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, didn't work out. Caleb Williams came there. He ended up transferring. Is at South Carolina. You put on his tape, there's a lot of hit or miss with him. But today, I think he had a nice day today. Good zip on the ball. He's a guy that can navigate the pocket, a little shorter, 6 feet, 219 pounds, a little slider on that side. But again, the overall quarterback class, not too great. Michael Penix, for me at least, far and beyond the best quarterback there. In terms of running backs, I think the national team's got some guys that really caught my eye. Marshawn Lloyd from USC, and I know I keep talking about USC guys, but I watch a lot of Caleb Williams tapes, and I caught this guy's. He caught my eye. He came down here. Now he's doing some things that I wanted him to see, which is catch the ball out of the backfield. A couple times he made some nice catches out of the backfield. I think Marshawn Lloyd's a guy to keep an eye on. Rasheen Ali from Marshall, nice shiftiness in between the hole. Guy is about 5'11", 204, but he can run in between the tackles. Got a little bit of deceptive speed. A guy that I had no idea, I hadn't seen him, and I watched him. He's a little small guy, 5'9", 210. His name is Dylan Luab out of New Hampshire. Quick twitch, fast kid. The comps you're hearing about him is like a Danny Woodhead or something like that. So one of these guys that can be a special teams guy, or maybe like a third down specialist. So keep an eye on Dylan Luab from New Hampshire. Receiver, again, these are the national team. I'll touch on the American players later. Receiver, we talked about Cornelius Johnson from Michigan. Is his teammate Roman Wilson has been just killing it here. 5'10", 186, 30 and 2'8" arm length. He's a slot receiver all day. He's got that ability to that quick twitch, that two-way go. He's a guy that can make a living at the slot level. Is really, really good catcher in terms of a hands catcher, natural catcher. I think he's really helped himself big time here. A couple guys that we actually talked about last week and I previewed is Brendan Rice, the USC receiver, Jerry Rice's son. I think he's come out here. He's done a good job in terms of showing his ability to be a guy that down the field can make some plays. Came in at 6'2", 212. He's got almost 33-inch arm length, but he's got that track background, and you see his ability to be able to get downfield and make plays on the football. So Brendan Rice, I think, has really acquitted himself nicely. I think has solidified himself in that second round range. Again, it's too early to kind of say all that stuff, but I think right now he's looking good in that second round range. Javon Baker from UCF, the former Alabama transfer. I went to UCF. I think he's done a good job, not overly popping all over the place, but he's made some subtle moves, some subtle plays down the football field. Again, showing the ability with the hands, extend outside his frame, make some catches downfield, make some plays. Javon Baker from UCF has made some plays there. Guys that have opened my eyes that I'm going to go back and watch some more tape on. Ricky Pearsall from Florida, really, I think is turned to be a guy that can make plays on the football down the field. I don't want to call him this year's Puka Nacua, but he's got a chance to be that kind of a player. He's a guy that can come in and get into a system and be a guy that can make some plays. So I'm going to go back and take a look at his film. Ricky Pearsall from Florida, Luke McCaffrey from Rice, obviously his brother, Christian McCaffrey, his dad, Ed McCaffrey. He's a guy that went to Nebraska as a quarterback and played quarterback and then transferred to Rice as a quarterback, then switched over to receiver, actually running back and then receiver. So he's been all over the place. So he's learned the position. I think, his size at 6'2", 202 was pretty good. He shows some ability to get some separation, get some, some speed down the football field. Short arms though, sub 30-inch arms, which kind of surprised me for that frame, that kind of torso. That I don't know if that was just a bad measurement or whatnot. So we'll see what the official numbers are at the combine. But Luke McCaffrey is a guy I'm going to go back and watch some Rice tape and study him as possibly a possession receiver down the field. So those guys. At tight end, Theo Johnson from Penn State, 6'6", 257, 33 and 4/8 arm length. This is a guy that shows the ability to make some plays, maybe stretch the field a little bit. So Theo Johnson at tight end. Offensive line, I've touched on a couple of these guys already and some of my tweets and some of the show earlier, but Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, strong mauler type, a guy that can play guard, a guy that can play center, 6'3", 334, 32+ inch arms. This is the guy that, in those power gap schemes, I think he's a guy that can move guys off the football field. He's a guy that can get to a second level real quick and just seal off and eliminate that second level linebacker. So he's looked good. Zach Frazier, another center, 6'3", 314 with 32 and 3/8 arm length. He's a guy from West Virginia, more of an athletic center. I tweeted about him. I think he's a more ideal fit, from my opinion, if the Bears do run the true wide zone scheme under Shane Waldron for their scheme. He's an athletic guy, not a mauler, not the guy that can move guys off their spots like a Powers Johnson, but he's more of that lateral guy. Got the quickness, the guy that can get to a second level and get to a second level defender, guy that can move laterally, maintain and sustain his blocks. So those two guys on the national team, the Jackson Powers Johnson and Zach Frazier are the two centers. Going defensive line now, Dwayne Carter from Duke, another guy I'm going to go back and do some work on. 6'2", 308, 33-inch arms. A guy that isn't just powering guys, backing them up off their spot. Again, might not be a generate, pass rusher kind of guy, but a guy that can be a one technique and be a guy that can help, stop the run and stuff the run there at the line of scrimmage. Guy that really fits what the Bears like in terms of their defensive linemen. The production hasn't been there, but it's Gabe Hall, the defense tackle from Baylor, 6'6". You remember, Eberflus likes long, athletic defensive linemen, whether it's his three technique, whether it's his defensive end. He wants long guys, guys with long arms, long limbs, and are athletic. And Gabe Hall falls into that category. Again, production hasn't been great at Baylor, but here at the Senior Bowl, he's been penetrating, getting skinny, getting into the backfield, disrupting that run game and at the Senior Bowl practices. 6'6", 290 pounds, 34 and 3/8 arm lengths. Again, falls into that traits area that the Bears like in their defensive linemen. Someone that's really kind of popped today for me, Austin Booker. He's an edge guy, undersized guy from Kansas, was at Minnesota for 2 years, transferred to Kansas, is only a redshirt sophomore. So he had like at least 2 more years of eligibility. He decided to come out. Again, 6'4", 240, undersized in terms of the weight, but he's one of those, I've been talking about guys that can come off the edge and just be a pass rusher, guys that can line up opposite of Montez Sweat and be a guy with that first step quickness. And, he's got the long arms, the 34-inch long arms, but again, he's got that first step quickness. He has a couple of spin moves today in those one-on-one drills that really caught my eye. So Austin Booker is a guy I'm going to go back and do some work on, the kid from Kansas. The one of the best players in position, be damned, at the Senior Bowl has been Quinion Mitchell, the corner out of Toledo. This kid looks like a first-round cornerback all the way. 6 feet, 195, almost 32-inch arms. He's got the quick twitch in terms of his feet, can be able to plant and transition, come down quickly to making plays on the ball. This kid had 19 and 18, respectively, passes broken up the last 2 years at Toledo. So talk about a ball-hawking corner. Quinion Mitchell has made big-time money. he's probably moved himself from a late first to probably a mid first round pick in this week's practices. So that's the national team. Did you want to take a break, Aldo, or should I keep going with the American team? Letting you run the show here.
Love what you're doing. Continue, please.
All right. So we talked about Spencer Rattler. Again, this is the American team. Spencer Rattler, quarterback. Receiver-wise, Jaquan Jackson from Tulane, another diminutive small receiver, 5'9", 190 pounds, 30 and plus inch arm length. Not a big guy, but a guy that can work that slot, a guy that can make plays in the open field. Comes from NFL pedigree. Ed Reed, the All-Pro safety, the Hall of Fame safety, I should say, is his nephew. He's his nephew. So Jaquan Jackson from Tulane has been making plays all over the football field down in Mobile. Ryan Florney is a receiver from Southeast Missouri. So whenever I see the schools with the directional names in them, so I got to always go back and look at these guys. And Ryan Florney has really shown me something this week. And in terms of, he's just a smooth, big receiver, 6'1", 200 pounds, 10-inch hands, big hands, and again, catches it effortlessly. So again, he's a guy, Ryan Florney from Southeast Missouri. I'm going to go back and take a look at. He's opened my eyes. Lad McConkey, the kid from Georgia. I kind of wrote him off as, he's just a, I don't want to sound, but a white guy that's makes catches, right? But he's more than that. He's come down here. He runs terrific routes. He's got great acceleration into his routes. He does a great job of setting up his defenders, knowing how to run and cut off of his leverage. He's always open. He's always running routes. And he's always getting open. So, and he's got sure hands. And I think, this guy that, there's talking about, he might run a 4.4s at the combine. So he's got speed. He's got the ability to, route running ability. He played in a pro style system at Georgia. He's got good hands. I think Lad McConkey has really shown off and shown out here this week here at the Senior Bowl. Going to the offensive line on the American team, Christian Hayes, center guard from UConn, really kind of caught my eye, especially today. He's a guy that's athletic, 6'2", 318 with 33 plus inch arm length. So he's got the length to play at guard, but I think I see him. I think he might be shifted inside to center. We'll see what happens. Today I saw him taking snaps at center in those one-on-ones as well. So we'll see what goes, but he's really impressed me. He's that guy. I actually got into it today with Jefferson from LSU, the defensive tackles. They had got into a little scuffle there in those one-on-ones. So Christian Hayes from UConn, keep an eye on that guy. Javon Foster, tackle from Missouri. Again, we've talked about, is Braxton Jones the left tackle of the future? Is he, someone that you can move off of? Well, Javon Foster is a guy who's making his case to get drafted early on day 2 here. 6'5", 309, 35-inch arms. So he's got the measurables, and he's shown he's got the athletic ability in terms of the feet, in terms of staying balanced in his stance. And he's shown some nastiness. I mean, these guys come out there in one-on-one and he's really kind of trying to, put his weight on some of these guys and really show that he is here to play. So Javon Foster, tackle from Missouri, is really showing out. This guy for me is just, it fits all the measurables. And Patrick Paul, tackle from Houston, another guy, 6'7", 333, 36 plus inch arm length. He's got all the traits and the measurables. Doesn't have the foot quickness yet that I would be comfortable just putting him at left tackle. But again, more of a developmental guy. Just keep an eye on him. Brendan Coleman, tackle from TCU, 6'4", 316. Doesn't have the length in terms of the height, but it's got the 34 plus inch arm length. So I think he's a guy, and he's shown the athletic ability to play tackle. So I think he's a guy that to keep an eye on here as a left tackle as well. So Brendan Coleman from TCU. Going to the defense side. Again, I talked about Quinton Mitchell being the best player on the national team. The best player on the American team, hands down, is Darius Robinson, this defensive end from Missouri, and he's a guy. He fits the Bears, guys. This is a guy that's ideal for the Bears in terms of what Eberflus and his staff wants. He is a guy, he's 6'5", 286. As a defensive end, right, but can kick inside. He's got the 34 and 6/8 arm length, so he's got the traits that Eberflus wants in his defensive lineman. And again, can kick inside on pass rushing situations. He's more of a power-based defensive end, so kind of thinking like another Montez Sweat. So doesn't ideally fit in terms of what I was looking for, which is that quick twitch, first step quickness, but he's shown that he's got the hand technique, the usage to be able to get free and put pressure on the quarterback. Doesn't have the flex, the bend that you want around the corner, but he wins with power. He's a guy that extends those long, 34 plus inch arm length into the tackle's chest and walks him back. He's got a nice little swim move. He's got a little up and under. So he's got some hand usage there. And again, when you kick him inside a defensive tackle on a in a third down situations or pass rush situations, you put him in. Now you team up with another guy on the outside. I think this is a guy, keep an eye on. He's right in that area in terms of, what the Bears like, and he could be falling into that second round range. I mean, after this week, he might even be that late first round. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But he's a guy that as a 3-year starter. Led Missouri in tackles for loss and sacks. 2022 was a academic all-enroll at the SEC. So he was a captain his senior year. So this guy has got everything in terms of what you're looking for: football character, the body, the physical traits, and he's putting it on the field and on tape here in terms of what he's doing at the Senior Bowl. Last year had 8.5 sacks, which was the biggest or the most he's had in his entire career, with 14 tackles for loss. So it might be a late bloomer, but he's coming on. He's coming on strong here. I think this is a guy. He's for sure in the second round, might even be tail end of the first round. So keep an eye on that guy, Darius Robinson from Missouri. JP last week, he called it. Brendan Fisk. He's a guy that I watched on tape, and to me, he looked a little stiff at Florida State. But man, he's been an Energizer bunny here in these one-on-ones. He's a guy that, first step quickness, and he's a guy that again shows the ability to be able to rip under, use his hands to get free. Does great job in terms of winning with leverage, right? He doesn't have the measurables you look for. He comes in at 6'4", 295, short arms, 31-inch arms, which is for a defensive tackle are usually a downfall for him. But what he's been doing here at the Senior Bowl is he's been winning with, again, first step quickness and using his hands to gain leverage and beating these offensive linemen. I mean, it's not even close at times, even on the 7-on-7s, even in team drills, you see him just penetrating, getting past the offensive lineman and getting into the backfield. So Brendan Fisk has done a great job and has made himself some money here this week in Mobile. Again, it's only been 2 practices, guys. Eric Watts, another guy from UConn. Production hasn't been there in terms of, stat-wise, but again, fits the profile from what Eberflus and the Bears like. 6'5", 277 pounds, defensive end, 35-plus inch arms. Again, he's a guy that has shown that his ability to extend those arms, got some shock in his punch. As a couple of times you landed a clean shot into the chest of the offensive lineman and literally walked him right back into the quarterback. So he's a guy that's flashed. A guy I'm going to go back and do some more work on. But again, falls into that traits category that Eberflus and the Bears defensive staff likes in their defensive linemen. So one guy I've done no work on, just found out about him is Jalen Hunt from Houston Christian. He's an edge guy, 6'4", 250, 34 and 2/8 arm length. Again, has those traits, those measurables, and he's got that first step quickness. So, I'm going to go back and do some work on him. But, these guys have all so far, these first two practices have really shown out and popped on tape and shown these NFL evaluators and general managers like, listen, I got something here you could work with and look at. So all these guys here are looking to continue to build in that momentum, hopefully carry on over to Saturday and then have a great game there. You're on mute.
Outstanding job. 50 cents in the jar. Outstanding job. I mean, my goodness, you are putting the work in. I really appreciate that. Hey, I got a list here of guys who dropped out from the Senior Bowl this year. Include the guy that you talked about last week, Byron Murphy, Jalen, who was a defensive tackle over at Texas, Jalen Wright, the running back at Tennessee, Troy Fontenot, who we highlighted last week, Cooper Beebe from Kansas State, the offensive lineman, the center, Cedric Van Pran. A lot of people have been mocking him to the Bears in round 3 or 4. Michael Barrett, the linebacker from Michigan, that tiny cornerback who always makes big plays for Michigan, Michael Sanders still, and Jaden Hicks, Washington State, Kalen Carson, a really good cornerback out of Wake Forest, and Josh Newton. Which of these guys not playing in the Senior Bowl? And I'm not sure why they dropped out, whether it was advice from their agent or injury or whatever it was. Which of these guys are you most disappointed that they are not going to play this week?
Well, I'm assuming that they got advice from their agents that they don't need to go out there and perform, which to me, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to be look at Letu from UCLA, obviously he was the guy that I said by far is probably my top edge guy. And he came in a little, in terms of his arms are a little shorter than I expected. So we'll see how that comes up, the official numbers at the combine. But again, he's been out there and he's been showing what he's got. I mean, he's beating, he's been beaten a couple times, sure, but he's been go out there, he's competing, he's beating, he's showing the ability to compete and get to the quarterback. So I'm not sure why these guys are just, sat out of all those guys. I mean, Byron Murphy, I think is pretty much a guy that they have kind of set into that first round range. But again, stat wise, he wasn't great. I mean, he's a guy that can come out here. He's got the traits, he's got the ability to kind of show off and do even better. I'm not sure why these guys are getting these advice from their agents, but Troy Fontanu from Washington played tackle, and he's being projected to play guard. I mean, this would have been a place to show, hey, if you want to play tackle, come down here and play tackle and show these scouts and these coaches I can play tackle. But again, he's sitting out for whatever reason. Some of the other guys, I'm just basing things off what agents are advising these kids, and some of them are doing on disjustice, in a disservice, I should say, because they could actually come in here and make more money and or cement their spots in the first round, if you will, carry that momentum over into the combine as well. So Graham Barton, the guy from Duke, also was listed as accepted. I'm not sure if there's an injury related with him or not, but he's a left tackle from Duke that I project inside at center. A lot of scouts I've talked to have him as their top center, believe it or not. Again, he played left tackle at Duke, so he's a guy that's not there. I haven't heard in terms of if there's an injury related. I don't see him on your list here. It's guys that have dropped out. But again, those are the guys that it is disappointing, because I think this is an area where, again, I know everyone's fearing injury and all that stuff, but you also it's a place to come in here and compete one final time with college, with the best of the best of college football, and just kind of cement your way into that first round if you're a first rounder, or if you're a borderline first rounder. Come on, how many times have you seen guys come out of nowhere and just jump rounds here because of what they did at the Senior Bowl, because everyone's watching, all eyes are on you. So, and you can go in and you can impress in the interview process and all that stuff. So it just makes no sense for me, in my opinion, to keep your guy out.
Now, I should say that some of those players did appear over at the Mobile, and I think it was just to try to get that interview in with scouts, but they have not practiced, and in most cases, I don't even think that they were measured, which to me is just, like you said, to repeat you, it's just bad advice from the agents. All of this information is going to come out about these guys, so exactly. Why not do it in that environment?
And like Kavondre Sweat, the big defensive tackle from Texas, he refused to get weighed. So that tells me he's got a lot of fat, right? So it tells me his weight is ballooned up after the season. He hasn't been keeping up in his shape. He doesn't want to get weighed, so he wants to kind of come here, show what he's got, and he's been impressive in terms of one-on-ones, being able to use that power, that strength to kind of bully offensive linemen. But why don't you get weighed? Because now you just even if you're up 5 pounds, up 10 pounds, now you put a question mark on your work ethic, saying, all right, you knew you were coming out to the Senior Bowl and you kind of slacked off. And so that puts doubts in coaches' minds and scouts' minds and Jim's mind, like, this is a very important job interview. Why not just go out and get in shape, and again, carry that momentum into the combine. But by now weighing himself and allowing himself to get weighed, that puts some question marks in terms of his work ethic in scouts and in some of the Jim's minds now.
All right. In terms of questions, we had a number from J2K. And J2K, I want to say, I think all of them, if not most of them, were answered by Danny during his presentation there. Did you talk about Marshall running back? Yeah, you talked about him.
Yeah, from Marshall, yeah.
And J2K says, man, I wish I could just Skype with Danny all night long. Make a date with J2K, will you? All right, let's see. Oh, the one other thing is J2K asked, Danny, any thoughts on Northern Iowa defensive tackle Christian Boyd or Iowa defensive tackle Logan Lee?
Yeah, both guys are at the East West Shrine game, and Logan Lee, flashes in the one-on-ones. Is undersized, about 6'5", 285 pounds. defensive tackle. But when he gets into the team drills, he's a guy that just kind of loses his space. A guy that can't hold his ground, gets pushed around, really thin in terms of his lower half. So he needs some developing there. But I mean, he's a guy that could go drafted in the day 3, but more of a developmental guy. And Chris Boyd is a big, powerful run stuffing guy. That again, he's a guy that can take on blockers. Doesn't have the measurables, but he's a big, thick body, powerful lower half. And he's a guy that, you'll see play tomorrow night, where again, he's going to be occupying blockers. And if he gets into the backfield, it's because he literally bullied himself back into the quarterback's lap. So those are the 2 guys you just talked about.
J2K says someone said that, will these guys be able to keep the weight off in year 3? And I think, well, everyone gets weight at the beginning of the season when they report for the mandatory training camp and the off season and the beginning of training camp. And so those are when, the pro teams catch guys who have maybe indulged too much during the off season, but also every NFL team now has really good nutrition staffs. They sit down with these players. They really coach them up and teach them what are the right things to eat, what are the right things to do to maintain their weight. And so if a player is going to come in overweight, man, he has no discipline whatsoever. And you really should think about not having him on your squad.
And by not allowing himself, by sweat, not allowing himself to get weight in, we don't know that, right? So now you put doubt in people's minds, because now all you can do is just kind of, oh, well, he must have been, taking care of himself. He probably ballooned up, and some guesses were like he's over 370, 380, 380 pounds. That's not ideal for a guy that's going to be, if you want him to be, more than just a 2-down player, you have to get back in shape. But the kid's talented, he's athletic, powerful. Just got to get himself in shape.
Have you been able to look at Duke's Dwayne Carter?
Yes, Dwayne Carter is another guy that caught my eye. I have his numbers here somewhere. 6'2", 308 pounds, 33-inch arms, huge hands, 10 and 2/8. Again, another guy that showed some surprising quickness for a guy almost 300 and over 300 pounds. Will show the ability to be a one technique in this scheme. Again, guy that just uses his strength, good, powerful lower half, get into the backfield. But yeah, Dwayne Carter from Duke has also popped out on tape here in these first couple of practices.
Very good. All right. Let us talk now about these changes with the Chicago Bears offensive coaching staff. Here are the names. Shane Waldron is, of course, the new offensive coordinator. Eric Washington is now the new defensive coordinator. Quarterbacks coach is Kerry Joseph. If you've been watching the Senior Bowl practices, he's gotten a lot of camera time. Wide receivers coach is Chris Beatty. The running backs coach is Chad Morton, former NFL running back. Passing game coordinator coming from the Carolina Panthers is Thomas Brown. He actually called plays for a couple of games before Frank Reich took it away from him. What are your thoughts on this new coaching staff, particularly on the offensive side?
Well, the good thing is they're bringing in guys that have been successful in the league, right? Obviously we talked about Shane Waldron last week as a guy that's actually called plays in the NFL. Oh my God, the guy's got experience. He's been successful developing, 2 types of quarterback, whether it's Russell Wilson and we're not developing, but being successful in his offense. A Russell Wilson with the Pro Bowl with Shane Waldron, and then a Geno Smith, who's more of a pocket kind of quarterback, made the Pro Bowl with Shane Waldron. So I mean, we like that. Thomas Brown, also comes from the Sean McVay tree, a former passing game coordinator with them, and also a running backs coach. So as you mentioned earlier, has experience calling plays. So they're bringing in these guys. Chad Morton. I always think it's the USC receiver, but I don't think it's a USC receiver. This Chad Morton. So, but he's a running back coach. He's been doing that in Seattle. Obviously, Seattle's got two pretty good young running backs and Kenneth Walker, and then they just drafted Zach Charbonnet this past draft. So those guys were productive. So again, guys that have done seemingly a good job. Beatty from the Chargers, he was there. Obviously, he was with DJ Moore in Maryland. Coached him there in Maryland, and then went to the Chargers. And he's been with Keenan Allen and Michael Williams, and we've seen the kid Palmer kind of develop there as well. So what we want is guys that can kind of take talented players like say Jacksaint and then just kind of coach them up, take their raw traits and then make them into football players. And hopefully these guys have done it, or they have done it before in the NFL. Hopefully they can come here and do it here for the Bears. But the main thing that it tells me, Aldo, and this is something that you may disagree or agree with me. I'm not sure, but I think this just tells me that they're bringing in a new quarterback, and they're going to draft a quarterback, and they're bringing in all these coaches, passing game coordinator, and Shane Waldron and all this stuff, all this experience to kind of cocoon that quarterback and grow him up. Because you know why? Because this is going to be Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus's quarterback. Justin Fields was not. And they do him out there with a half-ass offensive line, Byron Pringle and Dante Pettis as his top receiver, and say, hey, go see what you can do, kid. And then, they kind of, for me, they threw him to the wolves. And now you see, I think they're kind of getting that infrastructure, even though they're not saying it's going to be this or that, and it's still open. But if I'm reading the tea leaves, and I could be, wrong, obviously, but I just think that they're just putting a nice cocoon here to drop in their quarterback of choice, whether it's Caleb Williams or Jane Daniels, whoever it is, and have them get coached up.
You just made a really, really good point about this. Let's face it, every general manager wants to bring in their own people, and especially at the quarterback position. And the fact of the matter is, Justin Fields hasn't done enough to distinguish himself. Now, we know why. There, of course, as Danny said, a patchwork kind of offensive line, or surrounding him with, an offensive line that doesn't have any cohesiveness. Only one weapon in 1 year of the 3 years that he's been quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and DJ Moore at the wide receiver position. It definitely was not what we said in past Draft on Tap shows, which is let's surround Justin Fields with as much talent as possible. Well, Ryan Post, either by design or just by happenstance, has focused more on the defense, and I guess Matt Eberflus probably had a big say in that. But this, my overall point is this could have been a design by Ryan Poles. Let's tank for the first 2 seasons. Let's not play very well. Build up draft capital, just like we've cleared up salary cap for free agents. And then in year 3 of the rebuild, with all of these quarterbacks coming out, we land one of those top quarterbacks. And lo and behold, they got an opportunity to take the quarterback of their choice. So it is a compelling argument that you make there, and I'm starting to believe that as much as I want Justin to return in 2024, I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. Sad.
Yeah, and me too. I mean, like I said, I'm Team Justin. I would like to them to go ahead and trade that pick, and just think to have 2 first-round picks for the next 3 years and multiple day 2 picks. That's what they probably potentially could get from trading that first overall pick, and just build a team around Justin. And like I said before, and I truly believe this, Justin's only 24 years old. I don't think he's hit his ceiling, and I think his floor, if worst case scenario, if he's an average to good quarterback, I think you could win with him, with a defense, with a running game, with weapons on the outside. But obviously, I think what you said is true. I think they want their own guy. And I think it also helps kind of reset the clock for them. And this is what Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy were trying to do when they went and got Justin Fields. And hey, George, we got our quarterback now. We're going to go ahead and build with this guy. But that was kind of late to rest when they were all fired. But I think Poles just kind of set them and say, listen, I got my quarterback. Eberflus, you don't win next year, you're out. I'm going to get another coach. So that's another thing with this offensive staff that I do kind of like, Aldo, is they have guys that, so if say Eberflus is, they start off 0-5 or 0-6, they want to fire him in season. Remember, we were talking about on Buffon 55, who's going to take over? There's no one that can take over. But you have Eric Washington now, who was an associate head coach with Buffalo. You have, you have guys, maybe Shane Waldron, who's an aspiring wannabe head coach. We have Thomas Brown, who's also interviewed head coaching position. So if you had to make an in-season change, not saying that they're going to, but I'm saying if you had to, you have some candidates now on the staff that could fill in an interim basis too. So I like that aspect of it all. You got guys that have been in the league for a long time. Obviously, Eric Washington started here at Northwestern, was on Lovie Smith's staff. Ended up going to Carolina with Ron Rivera. Was a defensive coordinator under Ron Rivera. Now was a defensive line coach with Sean McDermott, and an associate head coach with the Bills as well. So he's a guy that I know Greg speaks highly of. from his time here with the Bears. So I think he's a guy that's been a great teacher in terms of getting those defensive linemen to develop and be better. So, those 2 young guys they got last year, and if they draft a couple more young guys this year, I think Eric Washington will be a nice piece to have there, and that coaching staff to go ahead and 2 of those guys and get them up. So I do like some of the moves they made. It's just I wish they had, for me at least, I wish they had not given up on Justin as soon as it looks like they have again. It's just nothing's been decided. So no one get on Twitter and say this is blah, blah. That's what it looks like. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and John says, how does Poles and Flus just get a path on putting out the worst team in the division two straight seasons? That's the thing. I truly believe that Poles told McCaskey, this is the plan, so forgive us. We're going to suck for a couple of years. And so, he got a free pass. He's going to be here at least 3 years. If this team doesn't improve in 2024, I do believe Poles' job is in jeopardy, and Flus is definitely out. What do you think, Danny?
I think Flus's job is on the line. I think they pretty much said it at that press conference. They said that they expect wins. They didn't go out. I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they said they expect to be in the playoffs, but I think they said they expect more wins, right? So they got 7 wins. So they expect more wins of 9, 10 wins. So that should make you a playoff team, right? So they pretty much said without saying that they will expect to be a playoff contender next year. So if Flus doesn't get him there, I think his job is out, and the one weird thing that happened is Mike Vrabel didn't get a job. Although there's some talk about maybe Andy Reid, if he wins the Super Bowl, he might walk away, and Vrabel could be a nice shoe-in fit in there. So we'll see what happens there. But Vrabel's available. I'm not into Bill Belichick. I'm okay with that. But Ben Johnson turned down the Commanders and the Seattle. Now some are saying that he wasn't going to get the job anyway. We don't know. But that's a guy that I expect to be another hot candidate next year. So that's a guy that intrigues me, especially if you have a young quarterback and you want to bring in an offensive guy that can build around the young quarterback. So that's a name to keep an eye on there as well. But I think Eberflus is on the hook there this year. If he doesn't win, he's out. And I think Ryan Poles will have a chance to, he picks his quarterback. He's going to have a chance to pick his next coach. So I think he's going to get 2 coaches. My only worry though, Aldo, and this is me, the cynical Bears fan, not the analyst here, is Eberflus goes and wins 9 games, makes it as a 7th seed in the playoffs, and gets a contract extension. And now we're stuck with Eberflus for another 2-3 years. That's my worry.
Well, that could happen. And, this narrative about assistant coaches, coordinators not wanting to come to Chicago because Eberflus is a lame duck. I think that narrative was destroyed with what's happened the last 2 weeks and the hires by the Chicago Bears. The overriding decision by a coordinator or an assistant coach to accept or not accept the job is money, guaranteed money. And so that's going to be the number one thing. If Eberflus loses their job and then they are subsequently fired as a result of that, and if they've got another year or 2 years of guaranteed dollars, that's fine. They're not going to die. They're going to be able to pay the mortgage and feed the kids and stuff. So that's a huge, huge thing that we fans need to consider when we're talking about lame duck head coaches.
Yeah, especially someone like Shane Waldron, who has head coaching aspiration. Right? He wants to be a head coach in the league, and if he comes here and he fixes this offense, because he's pretty much a head coach of his offense, and it's all on him, right? He hired his running back coach, he hired his receivers coach, he hired whoever he wanted. So I think he's gonna, if he fixes his offense, whether it's Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields, whoever the quarterback is, he's going to be a hot candidate next year, right? So he's looking at this opportunity. And the thing is, we're speculating that Eberflus has 1 year left on his contract. We don't know because they never said anything. I know Brad Biggs does a great job for the Chicago Tribune here locally. Says he thinks it's I believe he said it's a 4-year contract. So, so we're speculating, but it could be a 5-year contract. It could be a 6-year. We don't know what they were given when they refused to comment on it. So, there could be something that we don't know about there as well. But again, you come in here with, I think they see the potential in terms of what they do. I'm assuming Ryan Poles laid out the plan in terms of what they want to do for this offense, how they're going to build this offense. And I think Shane Waldron and the rest of the coaches believed in it. And like you said, they probably all got a 3-year contract. I'm assuming guaranteed money. So even if they let go next year, they still have 2 years where they can sit back and collect money. And Shane Waldron was so popular this year that I don't see him not getting a job next year.
Very interesting. Lots to talk about with this quarterback position for the Chicago Bears and how this coaching staff is going to, either work with the veteran Justin Fields, calling him a veteran now, it sounds funny, right? Or a new quarterback like Caleb Williams. And Shane Waldron, I think, worked for an organization called the Quarterback Connection, which is a training facility for quarterbacks that Caleb Williams was a part of. So there might be a connection.
Justin Fields as well. Justin Fields was there as well.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And then the quarterback tutor that Caleb Williams hired is Rich, and I'm going to butcher his last name. It's Scangarello, I think it is. He's also a disciple from the Sean McVay tree, Kyle Shanahan tree. So he's the guy that actually Vic Fangio hired as his offensive coordinator in Denver as his first year, and then subsequently fired him after the first year. So he comes from that Sean McVay tree as well. So and then obviously connect the dots here. Shane Waldron, Scangarello, training. Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams should be theoretically, if you think about it, kind of up to date in terms of what this offense is all about. If he is the pick, right? So you would think day one he'd be comfortable in the offense. So the connections all match. But yes, you're right. And but Justin Fields also went to that same quarterback offseason school as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some comments in the chat room from Jordan and others about Eberflus and how disappointed they are that he is returning. I wouldn't give up on Matt Eberflus. One of the things that I learned as being a staff director in corporate America, and a lot of this flows over into the world of sports, is that when you have an employee, or in this case, you have a head coach or a player, you shouldn't right away think of getting rid of the person. You got to look at the person and say, hey, let's sit down, figure out where you are making mistakes, and figure out how you can correct them. And hopefully that's been done with Matt Eberflus. One of the things that I learned is that the Chicago Bears might be getting into the whole coaches world, which is bringing in people to help Eberflus when he's talking to the media. How many times did Eberflus put his foot in his mouth by, staying on a topic for 15 minutes? They asked him a question and he wouldn't get off it. He's just trying to find the right way to put words. And Chris Ballard, from the GM from the Indianapolis Colts, told Greg Gabriel, he shared this on GTF, that one of the ways that Ballard stopped the Indianapolis media from asking these questions is that he immediately said, I'm not going to answer those questions. I'm not going to answer this. So get off of it. Very firm, told it like it is. And so now there's a working relationship between the media and, in this case, the GM, and it should be here in Chicago, the media and the head coach, that there are certain things that you may ask, but you only ask once, because, remember Mike Tomlin just walking out and the lady reporter asked him about his contract? That's the way you handle the media. It might look unpleasant, but you got to put your foot down and say, this is what I'm going to talk about, and this is what I'm not going to talk about. You know what? For us fans, we would respect him more for having that authoritative stance, that leader stance, standing up to the reporters, like hopefully he's standing up to players who are not playing well on the football field.
Yeah, and that's all well. Although, and you're right, he did look like a clown at times after the game, and just didn't know how to handle the media and all that stuff. And I understand. He's a football coach, right? He's not a guy that's a PR guy that's smooth and in front of the cameras. And you can coach him up, you can make him better there. But for me, Aldo, it falls onto this team, right? It falls to how unprepared this team was those first 3 weeks of the season. How it looked like they're clueless in terms of what they were doing offensively and defensively, right? It falls upon the two coaches. I know he didn't do anything wrong, but he brought those guys in. He vouched for those two guys, and that actually is a taint on him, right? In terms of him picking the right guys, those things, right? The defense got better, but again, they only beat of the 7 wins, 6 came against losing teams, and most of them had backup or third string quarterbacks playing. Right, they only beat one team with a winning record, and that was the Lions, and they blew a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter to the Lions. They blew 3 games with double-digit leads in the fourth quarter. If they won those 3 games for a defensive-minded coach, they could have been in the playoffs. The in-game decisions at times were just kind of weird. When to go to a field goal, when not to go for a field goal. Although Dan Campbell kind of threw that out there last week as well. So it's just the in-game stuff as a head coach. The mic stuff, that's fine. I whatever, you can coach him up now. I just don't have confidence in him as a head coach to be able to go ahead and lead this team to the next level. And you're entering a phase of this franchise where if it's Justin, or if it's a first overall pick, this is now where you maximize on this the salary cap, the draft pick capital, the excitement in the fan base, and you go ahead and you move this team forward. And yet, if your head coach is not capable of doing that, and I don't have confidence in him, you and other people might have confidence, and I respect your opinions, but I just don't have confidence in him. Going into that Green Bay game, that was a game where we all talked about, hey, you're not making the playoffs, but this could be a nice jumping off point for next year. Go in there and let's finish this game and win. And the defense didn't show up. Matt LaFleur outcoached them. Matt LaFleur, mopped the floor with him in terms of his coaching, schematic and all that stuff. So, that doesn't give me confidence. Looking at the division, Aldo, he's the fourth rated coach in the division. He's not better than Matt LaFleur. He's not better than Dan Campbell. He's not better than Kevin O'Connell, in my opinion, right? So again, why put up with that? Why put up with the not the best? And I was here. I'm pining for Jim Harbaugh, and I know Harbaugh's gone to the Chargers. And I know reportedly they paid him $16 million per year, and I know that the McCaskies weren't going to do that. They weren't going to pay him no guy $16 million a year. Plus, he went and he picked his handpicked GM. The guy who worked for his brother's organization in the Ravens, so he knows what he wants and all that stuff. So I understand, and they were never going to give that much power to Jim Harbaugh. But again, go for the coach that will take you into the next level. And I guarantee you, the Chargers within 3 years are either going to be in a Super Bowl or will have won a Super Bowl with Jim Harbaugh as their head coach. Matt Eberflus might be fired by next year.
Yeah. All right, we'll see it. I have to see it to believe it. I'm not a big Harbaugh fan. I don't think that his inclusion with the Chargers is going to give them a ticket to the Super Bowl. Maybe the Super Bowl.
No, within 3 years. I see within
3 years. I heard you. So we'll see.
He wins. He wins, Aldo.
He's never won a Super Bowl title, but yes, he wins. He wins college championships after 10 years of coaching. Yeah, but he wins. So there are some caveats there. All right, before we get out of here, I want to talk a little bit about the NFC and AFC conference championship games. I'm hoping that you had a chance to see them.
Yeah.
First of all, with the Baltimore Ravens, do you think that the performance there by Lamar Jackson, the quarterback, helped or doesn't matter for the argument to replace Justin Fields? In other words, Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson are considered very similar quarterbacks, but Lamar failed in his attempt to get his team into the Super Bowl. Do you think that perhaps people are now looking at Justin Fields and saying, well, he's going to do like Lamar. He'll have a great regular season eventually, but not going to get the team over the hump and get to the Super Bowl? What do you think?
That narrative is going to be out there because every time you have a running quarterback, a quarterback that's great with the ball in his hands, and they don't succeed in terms of passing the ball in big games. Oh, this guy can't win the quarterback. Remember, unfortunately, it was the black quarterback can't win the big games, and then that was gone. And next thing was it's a running quarterback can't win the big games. And next thing it's all these narratives that are out there. But I think Todd Monken, who was up actually for assistant coach of the year, did a disservice to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. They are, and I've talked about it with Luke Getsy, right, throughout the year. Do what you do, right? You are do what you do best. You're a running team, Luke Getsy. Stick to the run. Let them stop you from running the ball. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar had a great year. They have all these weapons, these shiny toys around Lamar Jackson. They threw the ball down a football field for the first time in a long time, right? But at their core, they're still a running football team. They ran the ball 5 times in the entire game, Aldo, at home. The game was never out of hand. They weren't down like 3 scores. The final score was 17-7. They were within 2 scores, right? And they ran the ball 5 times. Todd Monken, in my opinion, set up Lamar Jackson to fail. And, So that's one thing right there. The fumble by Zay Flowers in the end zone, that's a big time game changer right there. And I think it's about time that everyone starts looking at Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, and give him some props, because this is the man that his defenses aren't always great, but man, come playoff time, whether it's Brady and that offense, he shut him down when he was with the Giants, and he's doing it now with this Chiefs, a young Chiefs secondary. They don't have great guys up front, other than Chris Jones. The other guys are just kind of filling guys here and there, but he's scheming and he's doing a nice job with a good cover corners, good safety play, and one guy up front, and he's doing a great job of stopping offenses. So, the 49ers are going to have, a whale of a time trying to beat that team. But, going to that game, I mean, I just feel so bad.
Let me stay with the AFC, because I got a question regarding that game, and it has to do with the Kansas City Chiefs. And really, it's more of an observation. I was just so impressed with that. You mentioned the defensive coordinator. He did such an incredible job, but the Chiefs too, made the necessary changes and have, and throughout these playoffs, they've gone to the run when it was necessary to go to the run. They've gone to the pass when it was necessary to go to pass. They just make the right adjustments, and that's not any huge news to most NFL followers. But this particular game for the NFC Conference Championship, I thought that the AFC Conference Championship, I thought the Kansas City Chiefs coaching staff was fantastic.
It's Andy Reid, right? It's Andy Reid, and people say not Jim Nagy, Matt Nagy, because he's offense coordinator. He's offense coordinator in title and name only. It's Andy Reid, and he's proven to be one of the best, Hall of Fame caliber coach here. And the fact that he makes the changes, you're right. Before they've relied on their quarterback Mahomes and Kelsey. Obviously, Kelsey had a down year, but he came up into this game. He had a huge game, 11 catches, a touchdown, I think over 100 yards. Rashee Rice, a rookie, by the way, was last year at the Senior Bowl, and now he was a leading receiver at 900 some yards. He played a big role. But again, they had Pacheco, a fifth or sixth round pick, a running back. You got it there. But what do they have, Aldo, that I've been preaching all along? They have one of the better offensive lines in football. If you have an offensive line and a defensive line as well, your team is always going to be competitive. And that offensive line is by far one, if not one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in football. And they are able to control that game by going to the rushing attack, using Isaiah Pacheco. Mahomes is pretty much a game manager in that game. He was making sure he doesn't turn the ball over, get the first downs if he can, but don't put the ball in harm's way, and let your defense, Spagnuolo, do what he's doing on the other end, and we're just going to run the ball and control the clock. And that's what they did. And that's not what we're accustomed to seeing the Mahomes Chiefs do. But you're right, they switched up, and they're actually rebuilding on the fly, guys. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not. I mean, their receivers are young as heck, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Kelsey is up there in age, but offensive line, for pretty much they're young guys up front. Obviously, Mahomes is in the prime of his career. Defensively, that secondary is young and they're good. Okay, so these guys are just rebuilding on the fly here and going forward. And again, I think Baltimore should have won that game if they just run the ball, do what they've done throughout the regular season. Tom Munkin got into his head maybe and thought, I'm going to go here. I know he was interviewing for head coaching jobs, and maybe I got distracted, whatever. But to run 5 times, to run the ball 5 times, and the last run Gus Edwards had, I think it was like a 15-yard run. That was his last run. It's like, dude, do what you do and make them stop you. And that's the thing. The Chiefs' defensive line, for what all the credit we just gave Spagnuolo, they struggle stopping the run. So if I'm Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, that's where I'm gonna just give him a dose of Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey and all these guys, and then hit them with the play action. That's what I would do if I'm Kyle Shanahan. So again, it's just some of these coaches, they outcoach themselves when it gets to the playoff time. And unfortunately, it's Lamar Jackson is going to be thrown under the spotlight because he was the guy out there on the field performing. But I think the coach himself, Todd Monken, in this case, did him a disservice.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree. All right, let's talk about that NFC Conference Championship game. I got to tell you, what I walked away from most, and there's a couple of things at least I want to talk about the Detroit Lions, but what I walked away with most is we should stop with the Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields comparisons and really start to look at the Brock Purdy, Justin Fields comparisons, because the way they have built this team around Brock Purdy is what the Chicago Bears should do for Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, I think, could do pretty much what Brock Purdy has been doing, hitting high percentage passes, making some quicker decisions, and then running with the ball. Brock Purdy surprised the hell out of all of us, running with the ball when, the passing game isn't there, or there's just opportunities to run and pick up first down. So what do you think about my theory there that maybe we should start following the 49ers game plan for Brock Purdy and apply it to Justin Fields?
Although I've been saying it all year, I'm talking about play calling. I'm talking about weapons on the outside, right? From Deebo Samuel to George Kittle to Brandon Ayuk, all right? And then Dewan Jennings, who you and I have interviewed down in Mobile a couple of years ago at the Senior Bowl. These are all weapons that he has. Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, all right? Even Juszczyk, the fullback, is a heck of a player, or the blocker, or as a pass catcher. So he's got weapons galore around him. He's got a solid offensive line, all-pro left tackle, and Trent Williams. The other parts are mix and match, but they're okay. But again, he's got the play caller in Kyle Shanahan, who knows how to put him and his playmakers in the best position to succeed. And this is what I've been preaching about all along with Justin Fields. Is we just talked about it. He was thrown out there to the Wolves, says, hey, here's your, whether it's Matt Nagy in that first game against Cleveland, save my job, Justin Fields, or Poles and Eberflus tearing it all down with a half-ass offensive line, Byron Pringle and Dante Pettis as his number one receivers, and Darnell Mooney was hurt half the year. This is what he was given, and he was told to go win with it. And he got a first-time play caller in Luke Getsy, who we've discussed has no idea in terms of how to get a game plan and flowing. But again, flipped outside here to Brock Purdy, right? He's not as talented as Justin Fields in terms of athletically, in terms of as a quarterback. He has accuracy and anticipation, which Justin needs to get better at. But in terms of, overall, the quarterback body of work, I think Justin's a much more talented athlete for sure, and probably a better overall player. But he's got, like I said, the line, he's got the play calling, he's got the weapons in the backfield and on the outside, and he's got a coach that knows how to put him in a position to succeed. And believe it or not, Brock Purdy was in danger of getting benched in that game. If they came out in that second half and didn't do jack crap, Brock Purdy would have been on the bench and they would have gone with Sam Darnold. I mean, Brock Purdy is not entrenched as a starter there in terms of he's on shaky ground there. But it's not a secret in the NFL that Kyle Shanahan has a love romance with Kirk Cousins. That's his quarterback. That's who he wants to run his offense. Now, Kirk Cousins is a free agent. Can you afford Kirk Cousins on their salary cap? I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But I mean, so Brock Purdy is not entrenched. Now, if he wins a Super Bowl, and it's going to be hard to kind of put a guy on a bench if he wins the Super Bowl. But so we'll see what happens. But and going back to that game though, I just felt bad for the Lions, man. The Lions fans, because I know Don Burr withstanding, but to be up 17 points at halftime, and what bugs me, and you may or may not agree, and the guys in the chat may or may not agree, and ladies in the chat may not agree, but I'm done with analytics coming into football. All right, they took over baseball. Fine, you can have baseball. Listen, there are points in the game or in the season where you might say, all right, the numbers say go for 2, or numbers say go for a first down or kick a field goal. But when it comes to the playoff football, all right, you have momentum. They came back out there. They scored a field goal. Now they're trying to get back momentum. Okay, you go back, drive back down there. You even if you kick a field goal, it's not a touchdown, but at least it's back up to a 17-point lead. Now they get a little deflated. Like, damn, we thought we were within 2 scores. Now back down. That's a momentum changer. And then what happens? And the fumble, and then all that stuff, and then the ball off of Kindle Vildor's mask, and then he catches it. It was just downhill. I just knew once Ayuk caught that ball and they scored, I said, it's game over. They're not. The momentum was on the 49ers side. Defense was all fired up. The fans were fired up. You could see Detroit. Goff had a little bit deer in headlights look there, and then to again bypass a field goal and not tie the game. You're late in the fourth quarter. You don't do that kind of stuff. And I keep analytics in its spot, but do not run over analytics. Do not take over football like it took over baseball. I don't want that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Football is so much more of a gut game. You got to go with emotion, momentum. Exactly. And baseball is much more kind of a computer nerdy game,
thinking game where you can. Yes.
Exactly. The other thing that really caught my attention that I hope that the Bears learn in this upcoming draft, which is why I asked Noah, our first guest, Noah Chang, are there any speedy running backs? Because the way Jahmyr Gibbs has helped to transform this offense into such a high-powered offense. You know, I had in the 2050 mocks, whatever I did last year, I had Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Bears with the second-round pick because I loved him so much in college football, and that just the speed, and to have a speed back who could also catch. You know, I've always loved the Marshall Faulk type of running back. And to me, despite the fact that the Lions lost, but just looking at Gibbs's rookie year in its entirety, I'd love for the Chicago Bears to find a Jahmyr Gibbs in this upcoming draft. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but those guys are pretty hard to find. I remember we were talking about it last year. It was a Jahmyr Gibbs, because I mean the big talk was, oh, get Saquon Barkley as a free agent. I'm like, no. Don't pay money to a guy who's already had a torn ACL and all this stuff. Go get Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs can play, guys, and he's an electric running back. He's a guy that can catch a ball out of the backfield. Remember, he was going to be used primarily as a receiver out of the backfield because Montgomery was going to be the guy in between the tackles, and Montgomery had a great year. I think he had 15 touchdowns this year, David Montgomery, the ex-Bear, obviously, and I think, again, goes to the offensive line. They also have great offensive line, and what they do with their play caller is, and that's why I'm a fan of Ben Johnson. He sits everything up off of their play action, off of their run game. So a lot of their sets look like the same sets that they run out of, but they pass out of them. So the play action is very more effective because it gets your linebackers thinking coming downhill to stop a run, but the play action, they rolls out, and next thing you know, the guy's behind them. So I think even that 1 or 2 milliseconds where the linebacker's stepping in, it helps get the guys behind them wide open. So again, offensive line, the creative play caller, a quarterback that can get the ball out in time, and then now we put in 2 talented guys in the backfield. I think that all kind of works hand in hand there. Offense in terms of outside weapons, other than Amon St. Brown, Josh Reynolds had a good season, but he's just a guy really. Jameson Williams coming off that ACL from last year, he's kind of coming into his own, but again, he's a young developing receiver. Outside, they really don't have much. Obviously, the rookie Laporta, the tight end, really was a big big threat there for him as well. So they're lacking some weapons on the outside. You get another weapon to kind of offset or help Amon St. Brown and keep that same core intact. They're going to be even better next year.
J2K makes a great point. Lions had a good roster going into last year's draft. They overdrafted Fitz, not best player available, and it paid off. Yeah, they felt like, with that 7 game losing streak to end the 2022 season, they felt like they were really, really close. And I saw that video of them in the draft room, and when Gibbs fell to them, they actually thought that Gibbs was somehow going to be drafted before they picked, which would have been a shocker to me. I think a lot of people were shocked that he went in the middle of the first round. But when Gibbs was available and they made that pick, I mean, they threw a celebration like it was 1999, New Year's Eve. So they knew what they were doing. And Brad Holmes, if he has another good draft, it's going to be really, really difficult for the Bears to wrestle the NFC North title away from them. But they do also have, I think, 3 of their offensive line starters are in contract years and free agents. So they're going to have to do some tricky business with the salary cap. It's going to be a big offseason for all 4 NFC North teams. Danny, we've passed the 2-hour mark. I told you we'd be going 2 hours, and you knew it too. So any last thoughts, and let's get out of here.
No, I mean, I just, looking forward, obviously, to continue to dig into the tape. I talked about some of those players that caught my eye, both at the East-West Shrine game and at the Senior Bowl. I'm going to go and do some more digging in the actual game film from their schools and hopefully have a more comprehensive report on some of those players. And, next week we'll look forward to reviewing the East-West Shrine game and also the Senior Bowl and kind of continuing seeing who took the next leap, who continued to progress and move on and forward in terms of the player evaluation and get ready for this upcoming draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to make clear to people in the chat. I'm not advocating that the Bears draft the running back in day 1 or day 2. There are speedy backs that will be available day 3, and I'd like the Bears to take a chance on one. You look at where Ryan Pace found Tariq Cohen. Wasn't he a 5th round draft pick, Danny? I think 5th. Right?
He was a 5th round draft pick, yes.
Yeah. So, there's lots of opportunities to find some gems in day 3, and we'll be talking a lot more about that in shows to come. Next week, as Danny and I said earlier, it's going to be the Senior Bowl. We're going to take a deep dive into the performances of those teams, and if there's any standout players from the Shrine Bowl game that we think might be good fits for the Chicago Bears, we'll tackle those players as well. And our guest evaluator is going to be none other than Jordan Silvera. He's going to gush over JJ McCarthy, but we've already taped that segment, and I can tell you that he had a very fair-minded scouting report on JJ McCarthy and even pointed out a number of his negatives. So he might disappoint you, Danny, because you and him might agree.
We'll see. We'll see.
J2K wondered if you guys are still gonna have that cage wrestling match over JJ McCarthy. Maybe we'll hold that closer to the draft. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. A lot more Bears coverage coming up this week. We got the Willis Twin Towers on Friday. Their show is really taking off. Got a lot of great numbers, and so thank you for your support. This show and every show that we do live will come out on audio version podcast, so let your friends know that you can listen to Danny in your car, or you can watch his lovely face on YouTube. Danny, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.